Evening, everyone. Welcome to another special disruptive education live session with Global Education and Training Institute. I'm your host, Sudhir Kumar, for today. Our guest speaker for today is Dr. Pooja V. Anand. She is an assistant professor at Department of Psychology, Dolathram College, University of Delhi. She has been teaching psychology for more than 14 years at the undergraduate level. She is a gold medalist and in MA in psychology. She is the founder and convener of India's first positive psychology center at Dolathram College. She has authored the book Emotional Intelligence Journey to Self Positive in 2017 and is the co editor of the book Applications of Psychology in 2018. She is a member of prestigious international associations as well as consortium for research on emotional intelligence in organizations, International Positive Psychology Association, and International Association of Applied Psychology. She is a member of prestigious international association. Oh, sorry, I was repeating it. So, as the first convener of skill development programs in her college, she started many skill development courses in various disciplines as well. So today, I am very pleased to welcome Dr. Pooja V. Anand on our platform.
Thank you
Most
so
welcome,
much.
ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Sure, ma'am. So, ma'am, you have mentioned about the positive psychology. We always and we always in a perception that positivity is different, and psychology is all about eliminating the negativity. So,
Mhm.
what is positive psychology exactly means?
Well, positive psychology is basically, a reaction. It is basically an approach, a new approach in psychology. Because if you look at the traditional psychology, we always used to talk about, mostly used to talk about disorders or what is wrong with people. But positive psychology particularly talks about what is right with people. Okay, if you look at traditional psychology, the way we study psychology in most parts of the world, even today, we are talking about, we have a very shared vocabulary when we talk about disorders. So we have the DSM. But if you talk about what is right with people, that kind of vocabulary was lacking. So now we have a classification of strengths, which was given by Peterson and Seligman. The same thing if you look at traditional psychology, it talks about life below zero, right? Basically, so if you have to sort of, zero is the optimum level, and if you have
Right.
some disorder, if you have some issue, then you need to work on it, and then you come up from -3, -2 to zero. But what you do after that, that was not there in psychology. Okay, so positive psychology also talks about life above zero. It talks about flourishing, it talks about well-being. Another important thing which positive psychology talks about is basically that if you look at the earlier approaches in psychology, they used to talk about, how we are determined by our desires, we are determined by the environment. So most of these approaches were talking about how passive human beings are. But positive psychology talks about, gaining more control over your life, having more control over what you think, what you feel. So that's very important. Therefore, in a nutshell, I would say that positive psychology is a scientific approach, it's a practical approach to talk about your strengths and to promote well being and flourishing.
Right. So, thank you so much for answering that, ma'am. So, if we talk about the well-being, right? So, it's very subjective. It's sometimes related to our mental health as well as our physical health, and even that comes in our thought processes. So, what is well-being from your point of view?
Uh, I think well being, we all need to understand what well being is, because a lot of the time, when you listen about positive psychology and you see that happy face, you see that, smiley or a yellow kind of a, emoji, and it's just smiling. So, positive psychology, a lot of myths are there around positive psychology, which sort of because of which people feel it's a happyology. That means you just have to smile all the time, you have to be optimistic all the time, which I feel is totally incorrect. So today I'm going to use this forum to first of all convey to all of you that positive psychology is not a happyology, right? When we're talking about well-being, it is much more than being happy. And here I would like to talk about the founder of positive psychology, Professor Martin Seligman, who actually talked about well-being. What he said was that when we talk about well-being, it is much more than happiness, right? So he gave a model which is called the PERMA model. PERMA is PERMA. And
Okay.
PERMA is an acronym, right? So there's a full form for PERMA, which is P stands for positive emotion, right? So till then, till the time the PERMA model had come, a lot of the people would think that we're only talking about positive emotions, right? We always have to be cheerful, we have to be joyful. But with the PERMA model, we move beyond that. Okay, so you need to be happy, yes. But what are the other things for well being? The second thing is engagement, which is really important. Engagement means you are so engrossed, you are so engaged in an activity, you are in a state of flow. Whether you are dancing, whether you're drawing, whether you are just talking to somebody, you are totally absorbed in that. And you will see the more flow experiences you have in your life, the more happiness you have, the more well being you have. So, engagement is extremely important. Third, according to Seligman, is relationships. I think that is something that we all just take for granted, our family and our friends. But I think a lot of studies have been done and they tell us what we already knew, but they have scientifically proven that relationships are very, very crucial for our well being, right? So,
Right.
third, R is relationships. M is something really important. M is for meaning. And I think meaning is really, really important because you were talking about subjectivity, right? So if I am sort of doing anything and I'm just enjoying it, so it gives me happiness, right? So, but meaning is much more than that. Well being is much more than that. Whether what you're doing is adding something to your life, or is it benefiting somebody else, is it benefiting the society, right? So moving beyond yourself, so the concept of meaning, I think, is really, really very, very important part of positive psychology. And last is A, which stands for accomplishment. Accomplishment, just, when you reach your goal, when you just finish a task, the joy of accomplishing a task. So I think all these five put together make up the PERMA model, which is really important in well being. Another core important part of well-being are your strengths, right? And when we talk about strengths, it means your character strengths, right? If you look at the classification given by Peterson and Seligman, they talk about various strengths which are common across all cultures, like being kind, right? Being hopeful, or just love of learning, curiosity, being creative. So when you are using your strengths, and when you're experiencing positive emotion, engagement, having good connections with people, having meaning in life, and accomplishing things, all of these things put together is well being. And then you are flourishing, right? So, this is much, much more than happiness, I would say. So, this is well being.
Very well said, ma'am. Very well said. So,
Right?
that you have been associated with so many organizations, and you have been working with the students even. So,
Yeah.
what is positive education, if we talk about, because we have been watched by several educators right now. So, what is positive education from your point of view?
Okay, positive education, it's extremely important. First of all, let me tell you that why we began talking about positive psychology is because positive psychology is an approach, right? And we've talked
Mhm.
about well being, we've talked about strengths. Now, the same approach can be applied to different arenas of our life or different domains of our life, right? So, you can apply positive psychology to the world of work. How can you have more meaning when you're working, right? You can apply positive psychology to your health. When do you feel good, right? When you are able to exercise, you have a feeling of accomplishment. So health is important. Likewise, for the field of education. Now, in education, if we were to ask the parents, right, that what do you want for your child? What do you really, really want for your child to have? I'm a parent. I'm sure a lot of the audience, are parents. And as parents, all that we want for our children is for them to be happy, right? We want them to
Right.
be satisfied. We want them to be kind. We want them to be compassionate, right? We want them to be emotionally intelligent. These are the things that we really, really want for our children. But if you look at the current educational system largely, you will see that what schools are providing is that they are focusing more on success, they are focusing more on achievement, right? So somewhere when you look at both these questions is what do we want for our children and what are the schools providing to our children, you will see a gap between the two. And because of this gap, I would say there are a lot of issues which are happening in the society and a lot of mental health issues, right? So that brings us to the question, is that what we want for our children? Why aren't we providing that to our children? Right? So it's really important. So positive education is the answer for that. Positive education means that you are teaching children to accomplish, you are teaching children to be successful, you are teaching them all the traditional skills, you are teaching them mathematics, fine. But you're also teaching them what is well being, right? You're also teaching them how to be happy. You are also teaching them how to utilize their strengths. Now, let me also clarify that do not think that if I'm talking about positive education, I'm only talking about, character building. I'm only talking about emotional intelligence, and therefore their studies are going to suffer. I think that's a very wrong understanding of positive education. If you look at the latest studies, you will see that if a person is having well being, they have high well being, then their learning is also very good. Okay, so here I would like to talk about a theory by Professor Barbara Fredrickson, and it's called the broaden and build theory, right? It says that positive emotions, particularly that of joy, if you are joyful, you are more creative. You are better able to solve problems, right? So it's a win win situation. The children are learning, first of all, how to have well being. Plus, they're also doing very well in academics. So I think this combination is really good. And I think positive education should just begin right from the beginning. Because if you look at the schedule of children, right? I think most of their waking hours they are spending at school, they are spending with their teachers. So if we teach them something at the school level and then at the college level, then I think it will become a part of their personality. So I think schools have a major, major role to play in this kind of a development and improvement.
Totally agree with you on this, ma'am. So, while you were talking about the well-being, right, and that student rather focus on their, mental abilities, and they should focus on, several other fields. But the education system and even the expectations of, the parents, they somehow ended up comparing their kids with others. They somehow comparing even themselves, with others. So that's the reason they want their kids to be some like someone else. They don't identify and they don't even bother to identify their skill set, their good qualities. So what suggestion you would like to give to them? Is education through schooling is the only way to accomplish things?
No, absolutely not. See, when we're talking about education, let us not only put the onus on schools, right? When I talked about children spending a major part of their day at school, they're also spending their life with you. So the family, of course, has to play a major role. And because let me also tell you that when we're talking about parental expectations, a lot of the issues that young children are having, that the adolescents are having, mental health issues, self harm issues are because of the over expectations of the parents. So let us not pin everything down to the education system and to say that only schools are responsible. No, I think everyone is responsible. Every single member of the society. Let's not say teacher ne ye nahi padhaya ya school ne ye nahi kiya. What are you doing as a parent? And for that, I think you need to first of all value your child. You need to first understand that every child is, is precious. They have some or the other talent, right? We have seen Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. We just don't have to talk about academic intelligence. There are different kinds of intelligence, right? So we just need to see, we need to find out, and we need to give those opportunities. We need to facilitate the talent or development of the talent in our children. And when we do that, when we unconditionally accept and love our children, I think they will grow, and they will flourish like anything. So a lot of important role of the family, parents, and society. Yes.
Right, ma'am. Very true. And it's wonderful that you have mentioned about it. But again, one apprehension is in my mind that are the parents capable of identifying the multiple intelligences? Because I don't think so that many of them even heard of it.
Okay. Let me tell you that we have to make a start somewhere. Okay. If we start saying this is not there, that is not there, I think everywhere we need to improve, right? And the first step in any kind of improvement is self awareness, right? So I think just having this discussion and a lot of people listening to this, I think is one step ahead to be aware as a teacher, as a student, as a parent, to realize, okay, we haven't done anything till now, fine, but we have a long way ahead and we can do a lot. So the first thing would be awareness of it, and then start immediately. Jab jago tabhi savera, right?
बिल्कुल सही, जब जागो तभी सवेरा। तो कहीं से भी हम शुरू कर सकते हैं, बट हाँ ये है कि अवेयरनेस इस बारे में जगाना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है, पेरेंट्स के लिए
Absolutely.
भी एंड इवन टीचर्स के लिए भी। बिकॉज बहुत टाइम ऐसा होता है कि इवन टीचर्स सपोज इन टियर 2 cities, in tier 3 cities, they are just young graduates or sometimes even 12th pass students. So even they don't know about the basics of teaching. They don't know how to identify. They have been teaching the way they have been taught at their time,
Mm.
right? So somehow we have to revolutionize that thing as well. So very true, ma'am. So what do you think is the importance of positive psychology in the education?
Okay, like we started talking about well-being, we started talking about strengths. If you see today's world, right, and if you like we are discussing the kind of things that we emphasize on, right? If you look at in terms of nations, we focus a lot on what is the GDP, what is the GNP, right? So if we look at how well a nation is doing, if we look at how to measure that prosperity, the only thing that comes to our mind is gross national product, right? But we need to change that aspect. We need to talk about a new kind of prosperity which can be brought in by positive education. Because if you see the kind of things that have been, going on for years and years, we can see the consequences of that. Okay, not very, very good consequences are there. You have a lot of mental health issues, right? And therefore, I think positive education needs to be there in the curriculum. And when you're talking about positive education, I think it's really, really important in today's world, okay, because of the issues that the young children are having, that the adolescents are having. So when we embed positive education into the curriculum, I think we will see that we need to use a concept called positive prevention, right? Let us not wait for somebody to get stressed. Let us not wait for somebody to have a mental, some issue related to, a psychological issue. Let us not wait for that. Let us prevent that from happening, right? How can you prevent that from happening? We again go back to the concept of strengths, right? So we need to develop the strengths in the children. We need to develop those strengths in our adolescents, which will act as a buffer against any kind of a mental health issue, right? That is really important. Another important thing which I keep talking about is emotional intelligence. It's really, really important because you see that when we talk about emotional intelligence, so my voice is echoing. Hello? Hello?
Hello, yes, ma'am. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, my voice was echoing actually.
Okay, it's clear to me.
Hello?
Just try to speak more.
Okay. So I think no, my voice is still echoing. Actually, I can still hear
Okay.
my own.
Okay, just give me a moment. Let me check what is happening. Hello, hello.
Hello. Yeah. No. Again, my voice is still echoing.
Okay, just give me a moment. Okay. Okay, try to speak now, ma'am.
Hello. Okay. It's still echoing. I don't know what's happening. I can't hear you.
I was saying that it's pretty clear to me now. It's not
Okay.
echoing
Hello.
from your side.
It's echoing for me, but anyway, I'll continue. I'll continue.
Okay, it's not echoing on the even on the Facebook, even onto me.
Okay, so I'll continue. So I was
Sure.
talking about emotional intelligence,
Hmm.
and emotional intelligence is being aware about your own emotions. It's about managing your own emotions. It's about being empathic and having good relationships with other people, right? So emotional
Right.
intelligence is a very, very key skill. Then we need to develop resilience in our children. I think that's really important. The children today, if you look at what is resilience, right? It's bouncing back from adversity. And you will see that today's world is full of challenges. Every day you will come across academic challenges, you will come across challenges in your relationships, right? So if we are bogged down by those challenges, then we will not be able to, live our life fully. We will not be able to have well-being. So I think resilience is really important, and resilience is bouncing back from adversity. That means we give our children those kind of resources so that they are not bogged down by any kind of adverse situation or a challenge, right? So resilience is important. Next thing I think which we need to really teach our children is optimism. Optimism is that when you look forward to the future, you expect good things from the future, right? So if you have that kind of an orientation, you really look forward, you really want to do new things, okay, you want to try out new things. So optimism is really important. Next, I think we need to have more and more experiences for our children for them to have meaning in their life. So I think that's really, really important. Meaning also comes from connecting with other people, trying to help other people, right? Trying to go beyond the self or transcending the self. So meaning is really important. And another very, very crucial strength, which I feel is important for today's children, is hope. Hope is really important. Hope is about, if you look at positive psychology, how it is defined, it is about the will and the ways. Okay. That means if it begins with goal setting, that means you've set a goal, but if you're not able to get through to that goal because of one path is blocked, then you try another path, right? So that is called pathways thinking. Plus, another part is called will, or it's called agency thinking. That means you're able to motivate yourself to attain that goal. So I think if you look at all these kind of strengths, all these kind of skills, I think if we incorporate that in the curriculum, if we develop that in ourselves, if we develop that in our children, I think we will have a better society, we'll have a better educational system.
I'm sure that that would actually bring a very positive impact in it. So, as you have been working with Delhi University for quite a while now, and associated with several ministries as well. So, as per you, that what are the ways in which we can imbibe or embed that this positive education, in the curriculum, in the educational curriculum?
Okay, I think that's really, really important. And here I would like to talk about three things, right? First of all, is when you need to bring positive education and you really need to practice that, you really need to apply that. So there are three steps that we can follow, and these particularly come from the works of Professor Martin Seligman. The first thing is that we teach positive psychology, right? So teach positive psychology is that once in a week we can have a class or we can have a workshop which talks about these trends, which gives certain activities to the children to practice. Okay, so that is teaching positive education. That means you are sort of trying to bring that element into education. The second, I think, is a step ahead, which is embedding positive education. Now, that is a much more, different kind of an aspect where you are not sort of putting positive education here and there. You're actually embedding it in all the subjects that you're teaching. Let me tell you that when we talk about positive education, it's not as if I am teaching psychology, so only I can teach about positive education. No, when we talk about positive education, as I've talked about before, it's about well-being, it's about strengths. So the same thing can be embedded in each and every subject. How? If we're talking about English literature, right? You pick up any play written by Shakespeare, and then when you're teaching that to the students, you give them an assignment wherein they have to identify the strengths of a particular character. Okay? And then they will enjoy reading that more. So that's English. If we're talking about, let's say, geography, so how do you bring positive education into geography? So you talk about well-being, how well-being is different in different countries, right? And what are the factors which are influencing well-being in these countries? So this is, if you talk about sports education, physical education. So how can you motivate a team member who has not been performing very well, right? So these are just very little ways, and we can come up with even more ways how to sort of embed positive education. But the third element, I think, is the most important, is living positive education, right? So because I'm talking about positive education, let us not just think it is about students, right? As I have clarified before, first of all, when we're talking about positive psychology, we're talking about positive education. It's for everyone. Okay, let us understand that it is for parents also, it is for teachers also, and it is for students also. Okay, so we have to live positive education. How can I teach about authenticity? How can I teach about kindness to my students when I am not demonstrating that behavior, when I'm not being authentic enough myself, right? So teachers, first of all, have to sort of start living positive psychology. So it's like a trickle down effect. Okay, then they can reach out to their students and they can teach them about it, and then they can sort of live positive education. And then when they go back, they talk to their parents, they practice those skills at home. You can have, the PTMs should be just idea while just talking to you all. Maybe the PTMs could be strength based. Instead of saying ye nahi padta, she does not do this, she does not do that, don't start your conversation with that. Okay, talk about what is good in the child, what does the child enjoy doing, and then maybe you can come down to what the child can improve on. So many ways that we can sort of apply positive education.
Very right, ma'am. And you actually mentioned very good points that first of all, we need to understand that we need not to be a psychologist or a mental health expert in order to, insert the feeling of positivity. You can be a
True.
wonderful person. You can use your words in a positive manner in order to, encourage someone. And the PTM, the idea of PTM is also very lovely. I hope that viewers would be listening to this and would, imbibe in the next PTMs which they would be doing further. So again, I want to ask from you that, how is positive education even more important during this pandemic era? Because we are not, seeing schools to be opening very soon now. So how to keep that positivity intact during this time?
Okay, I think you have asked a very, very relevant question. It's a very, very relevant question in today's world. If you look at the pandemic, right? You have the COVID-19 pandemic, something which we were all not prepared for. It is something so sudden, right? And then a lot of the mental health professionals are saying that after this or during this COVID-19 pandemic, we are also going to have a mental health pandemic, right? So why should we wait for that pandemic to start? We should just like I talked about positive prevention. And like I talked about, that we keep on talking about, how our children should be successful, how they should have a lot of wealth. That is fine, right? But at the end of the day, if you see what makes them happy, what is giving them well-being is totally different, right? So we really need to rethink the way we are doing things, the way we are bringing up our children, the way we are teaching our children. And again, I go back to that we need to bring well-being at the center of the conversation, right? When we talk about well-being, let us not think that we are doing something extra, or we are doing a favor to our school, or we are doing a favor to our students. Not at all. This is, I think, a collective responsibility, right, towards our children, towards each other. Why only children? If you look at the adults, if you look at the adolescents, a lot of us, are facing those kind of issues, right? So what we need to do is we need to follow that. In fact, if you see, because of the pandemic, especially the people who are living alone, they are facing a lot of issues. You will see depression is on the rise. You will see a lot of stress on the rise. So I go back to my concept of positive prevention. That means, why should we wait for any problem to occur? Why can't we prepare beforehand? Why can't we have well functioning children? Why can't we have well functioning adolescents, adults who are resilient enough to be able to cope with any adversity? So, talking about positive prevention, I think we need to go back to well being. We need to tell our children that, fine, if you're doing well in studies, fine. If you're not doing well, even that is fine. I'm going to help you. Okay, but do not be harsh with them. Do not make academics everything in their life. Okay, so well-being has to come to the center of the conversation. One, when we're talking about well-being, then we need to talk about, like I said, let's not talk about positive psychology as happyology. Let's bring in the concept of karma. So we need to make our children happy. One, we need to give them opportunities, activities in which they are engaged. Like I told you, a lot of the recent studies have shown that when you're actually engaged, when you're doing something that you really love, you just lose track of time, you just lose track of yourself, you are enjoying that so much, and that really contributes to your well-being. Third is we have to focus on connections. Okay, till now at schools, at colleges, we are so focused on the curriculum कि curriculum हमें अपना syllabus complete करना, that's the most important thing. No, syllabus is important, curriculum is important, but connection is way beyond curriculum. Okay, we need to connect with our children, we need to connect with our students. There is a concept of well-being check-ins. Okay, so even if I'm not having a class with my students on a certain day, I just message them, how are you doing? Okay, what are you doing? Okay, tell me something which made you smile today. So we can get those little activities. So connecting with our children, with our students, is really important. Then giving them tasks, giving them opportunities, and teaching them the concept of meaning, that we need to move beyond pleasure or just being happy, or just focusing on being happy, because that is more about pleasure. We need to go beyond the self, and then we can talk about accomplishment and talking about goals and everything, right? So coming back again to the concept of strengths, so teaching our children all the strengths that I talked about earlier, beginning from, and I keep emphasizing that in all my talks because I work on that, we have to teach our children to be emotionally intelligent. It's extremely important for them to, first of all, be aware about their emotions, be able to manage their emotions effectively, be able to empathize with other people, and then have meaningful and satisfying relationships with other people. We need to teach our children to be resilient during this COVID-19. If you haven't done that before, fine. Make a start right now. Okay, teach your children to be resilient. If you're a teacher, then try to give them activities which boost their resilience, right? You try to give them activities which make them more optimistic, and very simple activities, like something like what went well today. So sometimes, you say, oh, my day was just horrible today. Now I would say that even on the most horrible day that you have, I think there is one thing particularly you would, if you try to focus on that, you will find that one thing which was nice, which was good enough. Okay, so try to identify that. So this exercise of what went well, or for children or adolescents or even adults, to write a gratitude journal, to write three things that they are grateful for. Okay, so all these things, right? So developing your strengths, being optimistic, developing meaning in your life, developing hope. I think hope is really important because, like we're talking about in this pandemic, a lot of the children, a lot of the adults are having feelings of hopelessness, feelings of meaninglessness, right? So hope starts with, first of all, focusing on your goal, having a purpose, right? And then have meaning in your life. So when you focus on a goal, you try to achieve that goal, you make plans to achieve that goal. I think if you focus on all these things, somewhere, sometime it is going to reap those benefits. Your child is not just going to be happy, but is going to really, really experience well-being.
Very well said, ma'am. And these are some great points. We always hear about writing down the gratitude journal, positive affirmation, importance of meditation on regular basis in order to keep intact our mental well-being. So these are some very good points which Pooja ji has mentioned today, and I'm sure that the audience who are watching us would imbibe such kind of thing in their daily routine, and they would share this video with the parents and the other people who are in need of motivation, who are in need of some guidance today in this situation. So it's time to read out the comments now. So
Okay.
let's go to the comments and let's see who all are
Okay.
associated with us today. So, Mrs. Varsha Chauhan says hi, and Mrs. Pari Sahdev, a much needed topic these days. Pari Sahdev asks that does positive psychology also leads to competition? So, it is a question from Pari Sahdev that does positive psychology also leads to competition?
Has she elaborated on the question, competition in terms of what?
Competition means among the student, maybe she meant.
Okay, I think when we're talking about positive psychology, okay, I would like to bring back the aspect of living positive psychology, right? So when I talked about living positive education, so I think competition, healthy competition is very good, right? Because you know that how you have to improve, how you have to be better, that's fine. But if as a parent, as a teacher, you have a concept of unhealthy competition, no, you have to win. And if the other person wins, then I am not going to like you, I'm not going to talk to you. So if
Right.
as a teacher, as a parent, you are not emotionally intelligent, you are not practicing positive psychology, then I think you are expecting too much from your child. You can't expect that from your child, okay?
Mhm.
You have to
Right.
demonstrate that to your child, then they will win.
So
Because
you,
children
as you
don't
have
know what
mentioned
they say.
about, yes.
Yeah.
So as you have mentioned about competition, like healthy and unhealthy competition. So how we can say that competition, even in the healthy manner, is good for anyone, because somehow they are comparing with others and they are undermining their own abilities. So what would you like to say on this?
I think when you talk about comparison, I think comparison is very, very natural, right? But you have to decide where you want to take that competition. If I want to better myself, okay, let's say I'm talking about mathematics or I'm talking about public speaking, right? So if I see a person and I feel, oh, I should try to sort of speak like this person, and I try out all the things, I try to learn from that person, I think it's very healthy. What is wrong in improving yourself? Nothing, right? But if you are thinking that I have to be better and the other person does not have to be better, so you have to focus on a win-win situation, not a
Right.
win-lose situation.
Totally agree
Okay?
with you, ma'am. Yes. So let's move ahead. Dr. Minu Bhatnagar says hi. Then
Yeah.
Gunsbal, even students are comparing themselves. Expectation of a student also, it is affecting positivity. Yes, somehow it is. And Pari Sahdev, some people are all about comparing. They always want their children to be like others, and this affects those children negatively, and can't see what their own children is capable of.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think I've covered that in my talk before also.
Yes.
That positive psychology as a society we need to practice. Okay, you cannot expect your child to be having well-being when you yourself are not demonstrating that. Okay, so first of all, as parents, as teachers, we need to understand that what harm are we causing to the children, right? We need to first practice these things ourselves and then go and preach this to our children.
Right.
Okay.
Very true, ma'am. So next is from Indrani Regan. She says that what is positive psychology's take on negative emotions?
Okay, that's a very, very interesting question. I think there's a very good book which I will recommend. It's called The Upside of Your Dark Side. It's by Cashman and Robert. It talks about how all emotions are important, right? You cannot say this is a positive emotion and this is a negative emotion. So I think that terminology needs to be done away with. Because if you look at so-called negative emotions, if you're talking about stress, if you're talking about shame, if you're talking about guilt, I think all emotions are functional, right? Each and every emotion has a function, and that is why even after years of evolution, we have all these emotions. If these emotions were not functional, then we would not be having them today, right? So when you say negative emotions, okay, if you're looking at stress, even stress up to a certain level is important. Anxiety up to a certain level is important. If I'm not anxious about my exam, I will not study for my exam, right? But if my anxiety crosses the limit, if my stress crosses the limit, that is something that I need to manage. It does not mean that anxiety is not important, stress is not important, right? All emotions are important. If you talk about shame, right? If people do not have shame, then they are going to do a lot of things which are not acceptable, which are not desirable. So, shame, so to say, is a negative emotion, but it has a function. So let me clarify here that no emotion is positive or negative, and I think very soon we will start doing away with terminology positive and negative. We could say, rather pleasant or unpleasant or pleasant or distressing. But positive and negative is not a good terminology, according to
Lovely, ma'am. So Pari says that thanks a lot for this wonderful session and answering my question. And
thank you.
really, I would also thank you for sparing time for us and talking about such a positive issue today. And definitely, it would be a quite value add for our viewers and even for me as an educator. And we would like to hear from you very soon again on some different topic. And the thing which you have mentioned about emotional intelligence and about
Yeah,
handling negative emotions, and yes, this is very true that in this the process of evolution we have actually attained and gained a lot of many emotions. So yes, we
yeah,
have to nurture each and every one, but we do not have to let them overrule our
absolutely.
psychology. Right.
Okay.
So thank you so much, ma'am, and good
Thank you
evening,
so much.
everyone, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, ma'am.